Today we're exploring a really personal choice, deciding where to give birth. Specifically, we're going to dig into the option of a planned home birth.
Yeah, it's interesting. For centuries, home was the standard place for birth. Then things shifted towards hospitals, maybe early 20th century.
Right, a big shift.
But now, with maybe more understanding about childbirth, plus modern medicine, we're seeing people looking at planned home births again. There's definitely renewed interest.
So our goal here is to really unpack the information that's out there for you. We want to look at the key things to consider, the potential upsides, and also the risks involved, just to help you get a clearer picture if this is something you're thinking about.
Okay, so let's start with who might even be thinking about this. Who is a planned home birth typically an option for?
Well, it usually comes up for people having a healthy pregnancy, right? Low risk seems to be the key phrase.
Exactly. Low risk. And often it seems connected to wanting a certain type of birth experience.
Like wanting to avoid interventions.
Yes, absolutely. Fewer medical interventions. Things like episiotomies or avoiding a C-section if possible, maybe skipping the epidural.
Induction, continuous monitoring, forceps, that sort of thing.
Precisely. So aiming for a less medicalized approach, maybe more physiological birth.
Okay. What else drives people towards considering home?
Well, wanting family or friends close, sharing that experience in a familiar place, that's a big one.
Makes sense.
And freedom. Freedom to move around, change positions, hop in the shower, eat or drink. Things that might be, well, sometimes more restricted in a hospital.
Comfort and familiarity, definitely.
Big factors. And sometimes there are other reasons, too. Maybe someone wasn't happy with a previous hospital experience.
Okay.
Or cultural or religious reasons might play a part. Even practical things like maybe not having easy transport or a hospital nearby. And cost. Sometimes cost is mentioned.
Right. Now, on the flip side, it's also very clear about situations where planned home birth is generally not seen as a safe option.
Yes, definitely. If you have certain health conditions, like diabetes during pregnancy,
Okay.
or chronic high blood pressure, preeclampsia too, that serious high blood pressure condition specific to pregnancy. Those are major flags.
Any others?
Yeah. If you have a history of preterm labor or you're at risk for it. Also, if you're expecting multiples, twins, triplets.
Right.
Or if the baby isn't positioned head down. And importantly, if you've had a C-section before. These things just add layers of complexity and potential risk.
Okay, so let's say someone is in that healthy, low-risk category, and home birth seems possible. You obviously can't just do it alone. You need support, a team. What does that usually involve?
Finding the right people is crucial. Primarily, that means midwives.
But specific types of midwives, right?
Yes. Certified nurse midwives, or CNMs,
Uh-huh.
also certified midwives, CMNs, or midwives whose training and license meet recognize international standards. The qualification level is really important here.
Got it. So understanding their credentials matters. And what about support during the labor itself?
Well, having a doula, a professional labor assistant, is often suggested for continuous support. And for the baby, there's specific guidance recommending someone trained whose only job at the birth is the newborn's care.
Ah, okay. Dedicated focus on the baby right away.
Yes, or at least having a plan for a pediatrician check within 24 hours.
That makes sense. Dedicated care for both. Any advice on actually choosing this team?
Definitely. It suggested you interview potential midwives, talk about their philosophy, see if it clicks with yours, and crucially, check that they have good access to doctors or specialists at a hospital nearby.
The hospital connection's key.
And ideally, that they have a specific backup obstetrician they work with. It's all part of that safety net planning.
Speaking of safety and being prepared, what sort of equipment does a qualified midwife typically bring? It's not just showing up, right?
Oh, not at all. They
Yeah.
come prepared for quite a range of situations. You'd
Great.
expect them to have oxygen for the baby just in case.
Basic medical readiness.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Plus sterile gloves, gauze, the standard stuff,
Mhm.
little cotton hats for the baby, drop cloths, waterproof covers for the bed, practical things,
Yeah.
a thermometer, and tools to monitor the baby's heart rate, like a fetoscope or a handheld Doppler.
And importantly,
Medications, specifically drugs to manage or stop postpartum hemorrhage excessive bleeding. That's critical.
okay. And sometimes other things too, more complementary stuff.
Yes, depending on their training and style, you might see herbal remedies, homeopathic things, massage tools or techniques,
Mhm.
maybe even acupuncture needles, and definitely the supplies needed for stitching up.
Wow, okay, so it's a mix of medical preparedness and potentially more holistic support.
It really shows that combination, yeah.
All this equipment points towards being ready for different scenarios. Which brings us to the plan B, transfers. What if things don't go as planned and a hospital transfer is needed?
This is a really, really important piece to understand and plan for. A transfer could happen during labor or even right after delivery for a number of reasons. If her blood pressure spikes, if labor just stalls out, not making progress, or if there are signs the baby isn't coping well with labor. A cord prolapse, which is an emergency where the cord comes out first.
Okay, serious situations.
Hemorrhage again, excessive bleeding. Or if the baby shifts into a position that's not head first. If the mother decides she needs more pain relief than available at home, or if she develops a fever.
That's quite a list of possibilities.
Yeah, there was a UK study mentioned. It found about 40% of first-time mothers planning a home birth end up transferring.
40%? What?
Yeah. It's much lower for those who've given birth before, around 10%. But that 40% for first-timers, it really highlights that the transfer plan isn't just a what-if. It's a possibility you need to be ready for.
So how do you prepare for that?
Well, first, you need a very clear conversation with your midwife or provider about exactly what signs or symptoms would trigger that transfer decision during your labor.
Okay, specific triggers.
Then, reliable transportation is a must. The guidance stresses being close to a hospital, ideally within about 15 minutes drive.
Proximity is key then.
It really is. And asking your provider to make contact with that hospital beforehand, that can help make things smoother if you do need to go in, ensuring they're expecting you and ready to take over care quickly.
It really underlines a serious point, though, doesn't it? If you do need that transfer for something life-threatening, there's a potential delay compared to already being in the hospital.
Absolutely. That potential delay in accessing emergency care is, frankly, one of the central risks to weigh carefully. Good planning and proximity help mitigate it, but the risk is there.
Okay. Let's shift gears slightly from the unexpected to the planned part. Creating a birth plan. What's the value of that, especially for a home birth?
Well, a birth plan is really your tool for thinking through your preferences and communicating them clearly to your midwife, your doula, anyone supporting you.
So what kind of things would you put in it?
You'd think about who you want there with you, what kind of atmosphere you want, music, dim lights, things like that, what comfort measures you plan to use, maybe a birth pool, massage, any preferences on pain management methods available at home, and what you want to happen right after the baby arrives, like immediate skin-to-skin or breastfeeding.
Sort of like a roadmap for your ideal scenario.
Exactly. And once you've drafted it, you absolutely need to discuss it thoroughly with your midwife or provider. Make sure it's realistic and they're on board.
Okay.
And based on that plan, you might need to gather some supplies yourself, beyond what the midwife brings. Share it with your partner, your doula, everyone involved. Taking a childbirth class can also really help you think through these preferences and prepare.
Makes sense. Okay, so we've covered a lot. Who might consider it when it's not advised, the team, the kit, the crucial transfer plan, the birth plan. Now, let's look at the benefits described. What are the upsides mentioned for a planned home birth?
Well, cost often comes up. An uncomplicated vaginal birth at home can be significantly cheaper. The figure mentioned was around 60% less than the same birth in a hospital.
That's a pretty big difference financially.
It can be, yes. Then there are the bonding and breastfeeding benefits. Being right there, immediate skin-to-skin is easier. Starting breastfeeding right away helps the mother's body, helps the uterus contract, reduces bleeding, and it helps the baby clear their airway. Plus, they get those really important antibodies from the colostrum straight away.
And that feeling of being at home again.
Yes, that personal environment. Being surrounded by your chosen support people, maybe kids, family, friends who can offer immediate help and just be part of that really intimate initial bonding time.
Okay, so some clear potential advantages outlined there, but we have to talk about the risks too. Most planned home births go well, but...
But, yes. There's research that indicates planned home births are linked with a higher risk of certain serious outcomes for the baby compared to planned hospital births.
What kind of outcomes are we talking about?
We're talking about a higher risk of infant death, also seizures and nervous system disorders. These are obviously very serious potential outcomes to consider.
That's sobering. Does the information suggest anything that might lower those risks if someone does choose home birth?
It does point to a few factors. Having a certified nurse midwife, specifically, seems associated with lower risk compared to other attendant types in some studies.
Okay.
Having that established relationship with a backup obstetrician, and having that solid transportation plan to a nearby hospital. Those seem to be key mitigating factors.
So it seems like the qualifications of the team and the planning for hospital access are really central to the safety discussion.
They appear to be, yes. And it's also reiterated that the risks might be higher for people with certain health conditions, or, as we mentioned, those giving birth for the first time.
So ultimately, while it's your decision, the general consensus presented is that hospitals or accredited birth centers are considered the safest settings overall.
Understanding that landscape, the potential benefits you desire versus these potential risks, that's what informed consent is all about. It's crucial for making the choice that feels right and safest for you and your baby.
Okay, so we've really walked through the decision-making process here. We looked at the health criteria, building that essential team, understanding the resources they bring, the absolute need for a solid Plan B transfer strategy, crafting a birth plan, and then weighing those potential benefits against the documented risks.
And the clear next step, if any of this resonates and you're considering a home birth based on what we've discussed, is talking it all through with your own doctor or midwife. They're the ones who can really apply this general information to your specific health situation, your pregnancy, your individual circumstances.
Absolutely. This is definitely not a decision to make in isolation. And it kind of leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? We have these amazing medical options available today for childbirth, but there's also this growing desire for more personalized, maybe less medicalized experiences. So how do we, as individuals and maybe as a society, balance those evidence-based safety recommendations, which often come from looking at large groups, with very personal preferences and the fact that every single labor and birth is ultimately unpredictable, something to really think about?